The Spring Grove Lions remained unbeaten, went to 5-0 on Saturday with a 21-12 win over previously unbeaten Mountain Lake area. Head coach Kody Moore joining us. And Kody, looking at that game, you guys were undefeated coming in, as was Mountain Lake area, and we're a little past the halfway point of the season. Looking back on it, was it just kind of a good midterm test, putting in the terms of education on Saturday?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I mean, we talked all week about the fact that there were going to be a lot of eyes on that game across the state, two undefeated teams. And you know what? I was real proud of the way that our guys rose to the challenge there, because that's an extremely talented Mountain Lake team, well coached. You could see that just their scheme. I look at their defensive scheme and what they do with different blitzes and coverages and all that type of stuff. And I love the way our guys handled that, rose to the challenge. I think it's a game that, like you said, it's a measuring stick game, to truly see where you're at. And I think the big thing, going forward now is hopefully we draw a lot of confidence in winning a game like that and playing like we did. And so overall, it was a great day there Saturday.
And that first quarter was kind of a feeling out process for both teams. You guys were able to score 3 touchdowns in the second quarter. What made things click there in quarter number two?
Well, I think we had to settle in a little bit with what exactly they were doing. They really throw a lot of different looks at you, Darren, in terms of where they're blitzing from. And again, like I said before, mixing up coverages and all that. So I think it was kind of just feeling out exactly when they liked to do what. And then also, they're a quality opponent. So it just takes time to kind of get things going sometimes. I was real proud of the way our offensive line and our running backs protected against their pressure. When they're sending late pressure like that, a very critical factor that is what your running backs are able to do in picking up those blitzes. And something that really stood out to me is the way that Silas Flotten and Dash Ransenberger handled that, and then along with all those guys up front. So that was something that impressed me. And then you look at defensively, we held them to, I think, half of what their season average was. So hats off to Eric Elton and the guys on that side of the ball just getting after it. And I think you saw again our defensive line, what they're able to do when they can pin their ears back and penetration they can create. And just a great overall team win there.
In facing a quarterback like the Evers kid, especially from a defensive line perspective, talk about the challenge he brings, because he can take off and run and get a lot of yards when he turns up field. Yeah, you want to pin your ears back and go after the quarterback, but you got to stay disciplined when doing so. When facing a kid like that, how do you go about selling to your guys that, hey, you might not want to go 85, you want to go 55 against this kid?
Yeah, I mean, we try to talk about staying in your lanes, and like you said, Darren, just not getting too far upfield. You kind of have to dip your shoulder a little more, try to pressure inside a little bit, not allow yourself to get ridden upfield. And he's a tough kid. He's
Yeah.
probably one of the best QBs in the state. And so when you deal with an athletic QB like that, they can spread you out and run. There's a lot of open space there, in nine-man football that you got to cover, and so it's critical, along with what the D line did in pass rushing. It's critical that your linebackers are athletic enough to step up in there, and kind of funnel him and try to limit him as much as possible. And then along with that, he can throw it too, and he's got some guys that throw it too. So, they're just a well coached team. I was very impressed with them, and Coach Kirk out there at Mountain Lake. He's a heck of a guy, and he does a great job. That's a quality program, and couldn't be more proud of our guys for getting the job done there.
And I noticed you were rotating a lot on that defensive line, because normally you don't play when it's 80 degrees out. It was a warm afternoon on Saturday afternoon. Do you feel through the first 5 games of the year that you've developed some nice depth on that defensive line?
Yeah, and especially like you mentioned, Darren, in a game like that where, I think it was nice for fans that were sitting in the shade, maybe, but that sun was really beating down. And black uniforms, black helmets. By halftime, you could see our guys were fairly gassed. And anytime that you can create depth, and I think we do have depth, especially at that D line spot, that's huge to be able to be a little bit more fresh at the end of the game. And, that's a critical factor and be able to win a close game like that. And so, no doubt, depth is huge. You try to create that throughout the season. I think it's important. Championship level football teams are usually going to have a little depth in order to get the job done. So, hopefully we continue that trend, and I like what I see so far.
And we've talked a lot about Bryce Barons on the offensive side of the ball, and and deservingly so through the first 5 games. Looking at Saturday's game, we've probably undersold his defensive ability because just from the observation on my end of things, he's really risen his game on that side of the ball. What do you credit that to?
Well, the big thing, and we've talked about it over and over again, is but the time that he put in the off season, just morphing his body, putting on weight. He's quicker, faster, and the biggest thing is just more confident, right? You see that. I think any player that's important for, and I think you really see that with Bryce right now. It's funny you mentioned, what he's able to do on defense. We looked at it at halftime there, and we're like, he was so gassed. I think he ran for 130 yards or right around there in the first half, and we're like, oof, do we need to get him a break on defense? Just to be able to keep him fresh. But man, he came out right away that opening drive. I think he came out and got an interception. He was right in the receiver's hip pocket and picked it off. And so they're like, all right, he's good to go. We can keep him there. And so it's great to see a kid like that. When your quarterback, he wants to be on defense. He wants to be out there all the time. When he's that kind of kid, it sets the tone and filters into everybody else in their mindset as well.
From the schedule perspective, I'd describe this one as out of the frying pan and into the fire as you head to Kingsland this Friday night. Obviously, team you faced twice last year. You guys were a state runner-up 2 years ago. They were the state runner-up last year. Quality opponent that you're facing Friday night. What are you expecting?
Yeah, they're super athletic. They have a DN, their number 4, Parker Johnson. He's a heck of an athlete. He really gets off the ball. He's wreaked havoc on a lot of the teams that they've played. He's a guy that we have to try to handle there, when we're on offense, especially be able to handle his pass rush and things like that. Their quarterback, he was out against Mabel, so I don't exactly know what his status is going into this week, but we're preparing for him. He's as athletic as they get. One of the most athletic kids in the state. Really takes team defense to funnel him in, try to limit his legs as much as possible. And then just across the board, they're well coached, fundamental team. And, they're hungry after what happened to them last year. Anytime you finish runner up, you're right there. You taste it. You don't quite get it. They're coming back hungry. And I know they lost their opener to Leroy to start the year in a good battle there, but they've kind of really flipped a switch and turned it on ever since then, I think. And it should be a tremendous battle. I know our guys are excited. Going up against a team that ended our season last year in the section final, it should be a really fun matchup against a great opponent.
All right, ought to be at Donnybrook and Spring Valley come Friday night, guys. Hopefully you can keep your guys healthy, and hopefully you can be 6-0 after next week. Best of luck to you, Kody.
Thanks a lot, Darren. We appreciate what you do.
Kody Moore, head coach of the Spring Grove Lions. Another dandy coming up this Friday night, Spring Grove and Kingsland.